Happy Halloween. It doesn't matter when you happen to watch this, it's Halloween now. And I've certainly tricked you into a treat tonight. Tonight we're going to be talking about a little video game by the name of Avenging Spirit. In Japan it went by the name of Phantasm, but I wouldn't blame you for not being familiar with either name. This Gameboy original seems to have largely flown under the radar despite being ported to modern hardware for a decent price more than a couple of times. At least, as much used to be the case. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Would you believe me if I told you that this adorable little platform was a port? Phantasm originally debuted in arcade cabinets with an art style only a mother could love. Seriously, for anyone just listening to this video, don't glance back if you're faint of heart. Jalico, the company who created the game, seems to have had a knack for unconventional arcade games like Arm Champs, which I don't think is getting emulated anytime soon. Or maybe Momoko 120% is more your style, a story of a girl with a gun progressing through her life all the way until marriage, the classic tale of girl and her side piece. Avenging Spirit's arcade run in 1991 had generally positive feedback, most of the criticisms being in regards to its learning curve. Unfortunately for its Game Boy port, it's not so easy to come across. And if the World Wide Web has anything to say about it, if you do stumble upon a genuine copy, and not one that looks absolutely cursed and sketchy, it's likely to cost you far more than any piece of electronic plastic is actually worth. The official version is just so dull anyways. This guy is just one of the enemy types, and it looks about just as generic as all the other photorealistic 90s action movie art of the time. No wonder it didn't get too many copies off the shelves in the first place. Yeah, hi, I'd like to buy my child the one with the Tommy gun-toting dingus on the front, thanks. So, how did I come to play this game myself, if it's so elusive and obviously valuable? Join hands in grievance as we remember the Nintendo eShop. If the Wii Shop's passing was a devastating day, the day that the 3DS and Wii U eShop shut down was a travesty. So many incredible ports to games that were impossible to play otherwise. That's how I ended up playing Shantae, Metroid 2, hell, Phoenix Wright 5 way back when. All of those experiences originated on this little page that had ports aplenty. The port for Avenging Spirit costing me an easy $5, which was swiftly paid for by the time I finished my first run of it. And now that the eShop's done with 2, we're back to needing to don our riskiest boots in order to even experience the damn thing. So what did we end up missing out on? How is this transition from arcade to handheld anyway? How about we finally start the story and get into the specifics as we go? Because this was a surprisingly dense experience. The story starts out with a couple walking in the park when they're suddenly accosted by some gangsters and... Oh. Oh. So, right out the gate, huh? Now that cover art is seeming a little bit more appropriate. After the protagonist is shot, he comes to only to find that his spirit has been kept alive by some mysterious scientific means, while Colonel Chaos over here explains that your girlfriend, aka his daughter, has been kidnapped by the men who killed you. He tasks us with the mission of bringing her back by any means necessary, briefly explaining that ghost energy has its limits. We're thrown into a black void in an opening that much reminds me of something similar, and we're given the choice of first victim as we're introduced to our main ability, Possession. Hover over any enemy you come across as a ghost and make their free will your plaything as you body hop your way to the headquarters of the evil syndicate. These crafty bastards have way more resources on their side than one may initially think. Most of the 6 areas you'll travel through have a decent handful of new enemy types, all with different abilities, attributes, and animations. As we'll come to find, you'll be spending a lot more time in your hosts than as a ghost, so get comfortable with this afterlife, and I'll do my best to let you know what's out there as we go. Area 1 is known as the Slums, and it's a simple left-to-right side-scroller with platforms, moving platforms, and spikes, your standard affair of obstacles and hazards. Depending on which host you choose at the beginning, you can start the level as a gunman, who has a ranged attack, the fighter, who has exceptional mobility but a short range, and the dragon. He looks like a kangaroo, but I guess he is a dragon because he spits fire. Although he does have an incredibly short jump. If you take too much damage and lose all of your life bar, your host dies and you're given a limited amount of time to find a new host. Different enemy types have different health bars, but once you lose all of your ghost energy, you lose your ghost form and it's game over.
You use life capsules to heal your host, and these bottles to heal your ghost energy.
Simple enough on paper, but I could definitely see a still blossoming video game audience getting a little bit overwhelmed by some of the intricacies. Although, I have to say, this chibified anime art style is such a glow up from the arcade original, and makes the action a lot more readable. There are only 2 enemy types to find in the slums, maybe more like 1.5. There's a variation of the fighter who's darker haired and does have a projectile. She seems like a straight upgrade, so if given the option I generally go for her. Or if you like platforming, you can go for this big nose jumping gunman. He jumps higher than any enemy type we've seen yet, and still gets that nifty little pea shooter. Some things you may notice about platforming that really shocked me was that momentum translates surprisingly well when jumping off of a moving platform, so even just good timing in certain situations may circumvent the need to ditch a power that you really enjoy. Once you get to the end of an area, you're greeted with a boss fight. Whoever you happen to possess is the form that you lock in for said boss fight. And if you die, you're sent back to the beginning of the stage, although, mercifully enough, you do get to keep the form that you died as when you retry. The boss for the slums is this burrowing snake guy. He's easy enough. If you mind where he's going to pop up and dodge his fireballs, you can whittle away at him until he's done. Luckily, every host has a really easy time with him, so pick your favorite. I really like having to stick to one forms for these moments easily lends to players having favorites depending on your playstyle, and even motivates you to play around with enemy types situationally. It's legitimately exciting to see an enemy you haven't encountered before because, holy shit, that could be you. And sometimes it even leads to situations where you gain appreciation for another form because it got you through a particularly tough patch that you couldn't do with another form. After we beat the first boss, the player finds a map in the trash, tipping us off to 3 keys needed to save our girlfriend. But we'll get more into that soon. Area 2 is the construction site. Here you may encounter moving walkways, invisible platforms, laser beams, and optional doorways. The new enemies here include robots who shoot missiles and have a little floaty jump, and this floaty guy who has a wimpy punch but endless flight. A white wizard who shoots energy balls, and a mercenary, of which there are a few types, but the one that we have here throws bombs in an incredibly nifty arc. Before we progress, I'd like to mention another aspect of the ghost form. You can pass through surfaces, although doing so rapidly drains your ghost energy, so it's best used for very small walls to sequence skip or scramble to a new host. With full energy, you can really have free range of your destination if you know what you're doing. I imagine someone more skilled at the game than I am could do an incredible speedrun with what's possible here. Another thing about ghost energy is that taking damage also drains a small amount of energy, so if you're not careful, you can find yourselves in situations where you immediately die upon being ejected, and that can get incredibly frustrating in particularly difficult sections. Before making it to the end of the stage, you're going to want to go through this door for the first key of the keys that were mentioned previously. This will illuminate one of 3 keys on the bottom of the HUD, and collecting all 3 unlocks the true ending of the game. Don't worry too much about the other 2 keys, since they won't be showing up until the last 2 levels. Luckily, once you collect a key, even if you die, you get to keep them, so the most important thing is finding them. I'll be sure to show you the difference between the ending of the game with and without them, as they end up being one of the most important parts of the game and climax. As far as simple collectibles go, they're incredibly straightforward and rewarding. It feels good to get these things, and especially to unlock the door they grant access to. You want to know what it is? The boss for Area 2 is this garbage machine thing, with this door that opens and shuts to protect its weak point. So blonde fighters and floaty guys are going to have a particularly bad time fighting it. Everyone else should do just fine. This little crush arm is rather easy to avoid even with the moving floor. At least it doesn't change directions or anything. Finishing it off, we're more or less told that our princess is in another castle in the following cutscene. On to Area 3, which has some incredibly upbeat music. In fact, this entire game's OST and general sound design are quite incredible. The sound of picking up health, possessing people, and even level transitions are so clean in a way that I feel like isn't standard fare for Gameboy games. Each area has its own dedicated theme, and although not all of them are bangers, none of them are bad, and at best they're pretty catchy. Downtown's music is as upbeat as its overall design. Neon signs and bars can be found on the way to your destination here. This level is home to the most enemy variety for new possessees. Some of the new flesh vessels that you get to GTA are the Snow Lady, who throws these snowballs that roll across the floor, the Shuriken Ninja, who throws little ninja stars, the Mercenary variant with homing missiles, a fucking vampire who seems incredibly chill with this whole ordeal and shoots bats, and the Batter, who has a bouncing projectile, and the Invisible Man, who doesn't hurt you, but also can't be hurt and has awesome mobility. But this comes with his health ticking away over time. He's great for scrambling through chunks of levels if any section is particularly troubling. The boss for this area is this snake that spits smoke at you. Platforming around these can be a little bit tricky. I find the Batter has the best advantage in this fight, but I can imagine the Missile Mercenary doing pretty well here too. Nonetheless, this is where you may want to get your save states warm because the game really doesn't pull any punches after Area 2. After obliterating this behemoth, we're told that getting into the Syndicate's headquarters may not be as easy as we initially expected. What would a 90s video game be without the motherfucking sewers, baby? Area 4 is a bit of a doozy. There's rushing water pushing you back, which leads you to want to stick to the upper platforms that have tricky enemies covering bases. They put a lot of pressure on you in these sections, so take advantage of strafing around in the air, and if you can, even just use your ghost form to skip ahead. Here you can encounter a black variant of the wizard that shoots lightning bolts, although I never noticed much difference between the other wizard, and this variation of the ninja that has this flail thing. It looks cool, but in terms of use, it's pretty limited. Area 4's boss is this marshmallow-looking guy, known as the Snowman. He's kind of aggravating if you let him get the jump on you too many times, but just keep moving so he doesn't pop up under you, and keep in mind that his second projectile is always closer to him than it is to you, so as long as you dodge the first one, there's no real threat to dodge the second one. And stay incredibly sharp on his attack where he makes fire fall from the sky, because if you let that hit you too many times, it can really rack up some damage. Beating him grants us access into Area 5, the Inner Syndicate, which has our second key, but not much else, so we'll breeze right past this one. To get this key, keep taking the top doors and fight your way through hell itself to get to the room with the middle key. Every other detour is worth exploring, but not mandatory. After scooping that, make sure to bring your A game to the end of this level, because even with time-shifting powers, this boss is fucking brutal, and there's no new abilities to help us in this level. It's a flying snake cyclops with what sometimes feels like a random flight pattern, but other times feels like there's legitimately no way to maneuver out of it. And if you die, you do restart this level, so I'm at a loss as to how any child of the 90s accomplished this legitimately without being some kind of super genius person. You would need an actual exorcism on that kid, because that's not human. If you somehow manage to survive, likely with projectiles in many, many save states, we reach our final destination, the Syndicate HQ, Area 6, where the leaders and our girlfriend reside. Let's finish this. The final cutscene before we enter the core of the Syndicate has our protag finding a secret message that spells out Ghost. This will be the key to our last key. The final area has the least straightforward progression, the player needing to climb a bit upward to reach the final boss. If one were to venture over to the roof area to the left, you can find one of the final enemy types, the Lizard Man. Talk about gender. This guy's just like the dragon, but with a better jump. I love this guy's pixel art especially. It's so weird that there's only one of his kind in this game. If you venture past this invisible wall below, you can even find a mercenary with a laser gun, which is one of the stronger projectile types in the game. You may notice a door past this that says Ghost on the side. This is where the final key lies, and if you missed a single one getting here, you're locked into the bad ending. We'll progress as if that was the case for the time being. Going upwards, we make our way to the final few screens. If we make it to this final door, without all the important keys on hand, we're told anticlimactically that we must move on, and the final boss fight lays ahead. This one is initially really tough. He'll hover from side to side and shoot homing missiles at you, Dr. Wily style, and if you try and cross under him, he'll try and smash you, then poke at you with his little robot arm. If you're crafty with your positioning, you can camp out on the left side and stand on these lower platforms. His missiles will collide with the above platforms, giving you a wide window to barrage him with some spam of your own. Do this enough times and cross under him carefully, and victory will be yours. One final blow, and revenge is exacted. Even though we came out on top, we never found the girl, and with spirit energy having its limits, our protagonist starts to fade away for good. He looks into the sky, likely for the last time, and a wind ominously blows. Game over. No credits. But what if we tried to decipher this door here? What if we saw these littered platforms and spelled out the not-so-secret phrase in them, then made our way back to this door tucked away deep in the Syndicate? This is your final possession target, your girlfriend, equipped with a laser gun of her own. Again, classic story. If we fight our way to the end this time, we can obliterate the final boss in nothing but a few shots, putting our revenge, and the Syndicate's crimes, to final rest. This ending sequence lives in my head rent-free. Much like the rest of the game, it's simple, stylish, a little morbid, a bit sad. And it solidified this game as a shining example of a hidden gem for me. An experience you may otherwise overlook, but it was well worth the spontaneity. Even if nothing follows it, even if there's not much to say, it was fun, and there was something to appreciate. There's something sad about the fact that it's now long gone again. Ghosts of good things surrounding the very essence of a game like this. Arcades, virtual and physical, can't last forever. With archives and art fading away like phantoms, I remind you to drink in what may surprise you. The Kirbys of this world, they'll always be here. Happy Halloween, everybody.